Good morning and welcome to Mayor's Weekly. As always, we're pleased to have you with us. We're here heading toward the end of January 2021, and joining me today is my friend and a longtime servant in this community, Danny Kane, at our Extension Service. And Danny, how long have you served our community?
It's been a long time now. I've been here going on 28 years. Actually,
28 years, and I always look forward to Danny coming. I have a selfish interest because some of the things we talk about this morning are things that I have a keen interest in, and it's always good to have good information. You know, what Extension Service is tied directly to Auburn University and the School of Agriculture, so Danny doesn't shoot from the hip. He's apprised of the latest research and developments that help folks be more productive at farming, and even bringing it to what we do small scale at our homes. And Danny, want to know, we're here in the end of January. 30 days from now, we'll begin to see some spring-like weather, and I know I'm already getting a little bit of an itch. And something I've noticed in the last week or so, trees, both fruit trees and ornamentals, are starting to show up at retail stores, and there's a lot that I enjoy about gardening and farming and that sort of thing. And as an old saying, it's a great truism in agriculture, is you learn something every day.
Absolutely.
And I was looking at one of our retail establishments' inventory of fruit trees, and I don't know the source of that inventory, Danny, but I see names that I've never heard. And what I've learned in the last 2 or 3 years, of course, with the internet, there's just a wealth of information there. And last year I was looking at a particular apple tree, and I'd heard the name, and so my inclination was to buy the tree. But I said, I'm going to do a little research on it. And what I found is that tree may not have been a good fit anywhere. Susceptible to every kind of disease in the world. Wasn't really suited for North Alabama, that sort of thing. And could you touch on that? Because I know, acquisition cost of a tree is about the same. I know the work's the same to plant it and look after it. And if you're going to do all that, why not get something that works?
Absolutely. And hey, I tell you, one of the things that I've noticed, and it's been very exciting from our standpoint, just over the last few years now, is just kind of a renewed growth in not just home gardening, but producing your own food at home. And there's a lot of reasons for that, I think. Number one, people just like to know where their food produce. Even some people are doing small-scale beef production now at home, and backyard poultry is really growing. But people just want to know where their food comes from, and so that's part of it. And part of it is just the enjoyment of producing something. And that's kind of the beauty of gardening, is you don't have to have a large space to do that. If you have a small area for a small garden, there's certainly plenty of crops that we can grow in that. If you don't have access to that, there's even varieties and things that we can plant that works extremely well as a container garden now. On a patio plants, we call it a patio garden. So you don't have to have a lot of room to do it. And and another thing, and boy, I tell you, this 2020 was one that I wish we could just all collectively forget about. Because of all the COVID restrictions and the pandemic that's going on, a lot of us didn't have the ability to do the normal things that we do, and so I think that also kind of piqued a lot of people's interest in getting out and doing some backyard gardening and stuff. So it's all been very exciting, but now is a great time of the year, and as you mentioned, particularly with the fruit trees, now is a great time of the year to plant those containerized fruit trees. And we'll talk very quickly. I know we're kind of limited on time, but we'll talk very quickly on maybe not a lot of specific varieties, but how do you select a variety that grows well in our area? And that's extremely important. I'm glad you touched on that. But whether you're growing, there's some key things you need to know if you're thinking about home fruit production, particularly our tree fruits. Number one is that you got to realize that it is a commitment. It's not just simply stick the tree in the ground and pick the apples. There's a lot of maintenance, a lot of work, a lot of kind of know-how that goes into that. But we start off. The first thing you need to know is is the type of pollination that particular fruit tree or whatever the plant has. For example, apples are cross pollinators, so you'll need more than one variety in order to have a good yield of apples. So are things like pears are cross pollinators. Our peaches tend to be more self-fertile type trees, and so all that information is available. But you have to know that blueberries are a great home garden plant that I kind of group together with our fruit trees, and they're certainly cross pollinators. I usually recommend about 3 different varieties if you grow home blueberries. The next thing that you need to look at, whether it's apples, peaches, pears, or whatever, is something that it probably never crosses our mind when we go through the catalog or go down to the plant stores, wherever we get our trees from, is our climate zones, and particularly as it relates to fruit trees, our chill hours. And chill hours are essentially hours below a certain temperature that accumulates from fall through the winter time. Once a fruit tree receives its adequate number of chill hours, that signals it that it's time to start growing and stuff. So if you get one here in Walker County, we usually get around somewhere between 12 and 1,300 chill hours. That's just an average. So if you plant a fruit tree, for example, that's a very, very low chill hour, like they would grow more in South Alabama, what happens, it tends to break bud very early. You'll suffer a lot more frost damage, winter damage. You'll lose a lot more fruit crops, and in the end, they just struggle here. The companion part of that actually then is what we call growing degree units. Once a tree receives its chill hours, it starts to accumulate warm weather units. And when it hits a certain number of warm weather units, it sparks it to bloom. Okay, so it goes through that cycle every year, whether we notice it or not. So the trick is, particularly with our apples, you want a high chill hour, or peaches. You want a high chill hour. You want a high growing degree unit. Okay, that keeps it from breaking bud too early during the cold season, and also holds it dormant a little longer into the spring because we tend to get a lot of late freezes and frosts and things like that can take blooms off. Once you get your variety selected, and we can help with that at the Extension Office. We've got a lot of information on those type varieties and which ones grow better here. You plant it. Always with any fruit, vegetable, the more full sun it gets translates directly into more fruit. Okay, so full sun, well-drained area. And most of our plants now are containerized. That didn't necessarily used to be the case. We used to buy them as bare roots. Most of them now are containerized. So when we plant it, make sure you make that hole about 3 times as wide as the root ball. Now, that's a big old hole, especially when you get a little light color on top like you and I have. But
bigger than the hole is the labor, isn't it?
that's exactly right. So the rule of thumb is about 3 times as wide as the root ball, about the same depth.
Right.
Okay, and and then we've got a lot of information on how to fertilize and those type things. Liming is very important, and along with that is soil testing, and we're always big on soil testing, whether you're growing fruit trees, home gardens, or flower beds, or pastures for that matter. And a soil test will allow us to actually see what nutrient content your soil has, particularly phosphorus, potassium, calciums, magnesiums, and some other of the major nutrients. But probably even as important as that, it gives us a sense of the pH of the soil, the amount of acidity in the soil. Most of our garden crops here grow at a slightly acidic soil, just below 7. Anywhere from a 5.8 or 9 up to about a 6.8 on the pH. There's no way we can tell what the pH of the soil is without a soil test, and that tells us You'll get a liming recommendation, how much lime do I need based on my soil, how much and what types of fertilizer do I need to apply for what I'm trying to grow based on what nutrients are already in my soil. So it's very useful information. They're $7 a soil test. It's money well spent. And so those kind of things kind of will help you, at least on the selection and getting started, aspect should help you out a little bit.
Danny, you in one of your columns in the Eagle in recent times, you validated what I was learning through a good bit of work and considerable expense, and that is, if you live in this area, your money might be better spent buying pecans rather than trying to produce pecans. On my place in the country, I have 4 pecan trees, mature pecan trees, weren't producing, so I get online and I go to the ag school at Clemson, I go to the ag school at LSU and get the information. I set about that, and I had a little success, but I looked at my expenditures over here and my pecan production over here, and there was a really, really big mismatch. And so when I read that, I said, Danny's confirmed that we'll just spend the money on pecans and sit under the shade trees.
Here's the thing, with our pecans, for most of us homeowners, we typically grow those old homeowner varieties, the old Stewarts and Desirables and those varieties. Now, because of the prominence of the fungal disease scab, which actually, it can be sprayed for, it can be controlled through a spray program. With the caveat, the product that we use to control those are very expensive, as you found out. It takes numerous sprays during growing season to beat that disease back, and you have to have a lot of really good equipment. It's not very easy to spray a 70-foot tall pecan tree when it's full grown and in bearing. So it takes those 3 things: a lot of spraying, fairly expensive product, and a lot of really, really good equipment. It's not something you can do with your pump-up sprayer that we all keep in our garage or carport or wherever.
Danny, as we said, people begin to get the itch. It's always interesting to, if I'm in stores that sell plants and trees, to see that itch attacking people, and it attacks a lot of them prematurely with plants, and they go too early. And of course, it's great for the plant vendors because they get to sell the product again because the frost kills the tomato plants and that sort of thing. But just a few tips if people are looking to maybe do some tomatoes or whatever at home, what they can be. Now, I think last time you were here, I shared this, a gentleman that talking about gardening and had been in all of his life, and he said there's something to do year round. He said, through the spring and summer and fall, you're working in your garden, and the rest of the time is preparing time. And I think that's right. There's things that you can do.
Absolutely. One of the great benefits of living here in the South is that we virtually have a 12-month of the year gardening calendar. So if you're an avid home gardener, you'll just love to grow things, you can just about do it year round. Just this week, in fact, I ended up I planted some sugar snap peas in my home garden, which I actually should have done a couple of weeks ago, but I got just a little bit on the lazy side, didn't get out there quite in time. But and those are wonderful. I usually grow them up. I have them on a little trellis, and they don't usually make it inside the house. I usually just go, as I walk through the backyard or something, go through the garden, and I'll stand there right at the vine and pick them right off when they come in and mature. If you've never grown sugar snaps, you really need to give those a try. They're a great crop that you can do right now. Starting to get ready for we always plant Irish potatoes, and so usually I kind of target kind of that week after Valentine's Day. Kind of mid-February to the 3rd week of February. You can get away with a little bit earlier. A great crop that you can put in the ground now. But you will need to, if you've grown potatoes before, you've heard the term seed potatoes, and so those are generally purchased down at your feed and seed stores. And you simply divide those potatoes. You want one. Us old experienced gardeners call them eyes. The potatoes have eyes. They're actually growth buds. so you know only at least one per segment. Okay, and I usually cut mine about 2 or 3 days ahead of time. That leaves and just let them sit and air dry. That'll leaves that cut a little bit of time to heal over. You'll have a lot less problem with rots and things like that once you get them in the ground. And then once they start to grow, you just simply mound a little soil up around them. Continue that process on, and they should in our area be ready to harvest sometime in May. Generally is a good time to take your potatoes up. Depending on the weather a little bit, sometime a little later. If you like what we call the new potatoes, that goes in all those stews and soups and things like that, you can actually take those up a little bit earlier. Most people think it's a separate variety. I want those little potatoes, new potatoes, and so what variety did I get? And actually, they're the same variety. They just haven't grown to a larger maturity
Tremendous
stage.
flavor.
Wonderful.
Tremendous flavor.
Absolutely nothing like it.
I love them. Danny,
also, you can, and I know you're an avid tomato grower,
right.
and I hear all the stories, and I'm still waiting on that jar of salsa that you're famous for making. So one of these days, maybe we'll see some salsa coming my way.
Okay, good.
Maybe share a recipe. I've got a couple of master gardeners. One in particular had a wonderful recipe for green tomato salsa,
right.
And it's one of the best things that I have ever eaten in my life. I think I could live off of it. But usually in February or so. Not too far down the road, if you want to start your tomatoes from seeds, you can get those seeds started if you got a cold frame or a small scale a backyard greenhouse, I call it, or even a sunroom that has adequate sunlight and things. You can get those seeds started. It's always fun to be one of the first in the neighborhood to have those tomatoes that come in. But there's a lot of last year, we kind of ran the gamut our tomato diseases. That seems to be the thing that limits our backyard production anyway on tomatoes are the diseases. And there are fungal diseases. There are some that are bacterial. There's some virus diseases that are pretty rampant out there now. And we saw it all last year. I mean, we saw everything. So the most important thing, select resistant varieties. I know we all have our favorites, and you and I have talked about that many times, but some varieties are just simply more resistant to diseases than others. One variety, for example, Bella Rosa, is a tomato that I recommend a lot now because it's for the most part virus resistant. We don't have a lot of the problems with the viral diseases in the Bella Rosas, and there are others as well. But also start with good plants. Know where your seeds or your plants come from. Know from a reputable source so that you're not buying diseased plants to start with, or some. In the case of bacterial, some of those diseases can actually be transmitted through the seed. Yeah. And they're there all along. So know where your plants and seeds come from. Keep them healthy. Otherwise, soil testing, nutrient-wise. A good layer of mulch. Mulch goes a long way in the home garden. Pine straw works as good as anything, but what it does, it creates a barrier on top of the soil so that when we get rainfalls and things, we don't get, those fungal diseases splash up from the soil to our plants. And so that helps a lot. A good spray program, the one that I usually get more calls than any other of our tomato diseases about is early blight, which is a fungal disease. Yeah. We would call it firing up. Generally starts at the bottom, works its way right up the plants. So the mulch will help for that, but also a good spray program of the fungicide. And I know how people, if you're a little bit antsy about the standard fungicides, you can also use copper or some of the more organic-based products. Works fairly well with early blight as well. It's just important. You're going to have to keep them sprayed to get that beat back. I got lucky last year. I picked tomatoes right off my vines the 1st of November last year, and it was wonderful. Yeah.
Danny, one of the things, and I know you wanted to share something with us as our time winds down. I don't know how many different varieties of tomatoes that I grow every year, but the work is underway now to prepare for planting seed, because so many, there's different varieties. They're not on the retail shelf.
Right.
But I have quite a few people, not that I'm an expert, that come to me concerning growing tomatoes. The biggest contributor that I have found to failed tomato crops is something that you can't remedy at the co-op, and that is neglect and the lack of work.
That's right. That's right.
And you can't just
anything worth having is
back.
worth putting work into. And I look back on things. One of my favorite old humorists and authors and stuff was Louis Grizzard, who, in one of his writings, he said it's hard to have bad thoughts about anybody when you're eating a homegrown tomato.
Yeah.
So I think I just think maybe the whole world would be better off if we just had a few more homegrown tomatoes. And
Right, that's right.
So I think I'm going to make that as a goal for this year to get more homegrown tomatoes out there.
Danny, you wanted to share something with us as we wind down here?
Absolutely. We wanted to make our seniors aware of a program that's ongoing. It's our Senior Farmer Market Voucher program, and it's administered actually through the State Farmers Market Authority. But essentially, qualifying seniors, that's age 60 and older, who meet the income requirements, you sign up for the program and you will receive in the mail a book of coupons or vouchers worth $30 that are spent just like cash at any local farm or any Alabama farmers market. So you can take your vouchers, go down to the farmers market and exchange that for fresh fruits and vegetables.
Our market qualifies.
Absolutely. Our market out on Airport Road, many of our vendors are set up to take those vouchers,
Right.
and they have to go through a little training program to be able to accept them. So many of them have, or most of them have now. But it's kind of a win-win. It helps our seniors, it helps our farmers market producers, and just gets a lot of people some more fruits and vegetables into their diet. If you're a married couple, both over 60, and you meet there's a tiered income requirement level based on how many people are in your household. If you both meet the requirements, you both get a $30 coupon voucher, and those
great.
come right through the mail. You can sign up for that. It's a very easy sign-up process. It's a little one-page form. You can go to the Alabama Farmers Market Authority website, do it right online from your own living room or kitchen or wherever. If you don't have internet access or just not that comfortable doing it, give us a call at the Extension office. We've been helping people all week long now getting signed up for the vouchers. We'll be glad to help you out. But that's one, if you meet the requirements, don't let that slip by. It's just a great program.
Great benefit, nutritious food and on the table of our people. Danny, I appreciate you coming. You're always kind to do that, share the information. I know Danny welcomes your calls if you have challenges or need information. And as I pointed out, the internet, there's just a wealth of information there. And so there's really not a reason to strike out blind with the availability of information and have a favorable experience gardening. So pleased to have you with us. As always, we welcome your questions. Send them our way. We'll get you a prompt answer, and we'll look forward to being with you next week.
If it's all right with you, before we sign off, I'll remind everybody of our phone number.
Yeah, do that.
Our number is 221-3392. That'll reach us at the office if you have questions. When to grow, what to grow, how to grow, insect problems, disease problems, whatever your question may be, we get a lot of different kinds of questions, and also a lot of our information, our publications and meeting announcements and things like that are available on our website online at www.aces, that's aces.edu, or like I said, give us a call at 221-3392.
And you leave the work to the gardener, right?
That's exactly right.
Thank you, Danny, and we'll look forward to being with you next week.
Appreciate you having us.